You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
Welcome. You are listening to watching the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. Well, a big week ahead, lots of potential turmoil. John Rubino is with us now. You find him at Rubino, RUBINO.substack.com. Make sure you go sign up there for his channel. You'll be getting content that you will not find elsewhere. And John is putting his heart and soul in this Substack because honestly, he's got nothing else to do. And we can't let that talent go to waste, John.
Hey, Kerry. Yeah, I had like 3 or 4 months of actual retirement there for a while, and I gotta say I enjoyed it. But it was, an old guy wandering around aimlessly in the world. Very pleasant, but yeah, I'm a few months older than you, right? So I can say that,
right?
Yeah, but yeah, it's nice to be back with a place where I can do my writing and get ideas out there and stuff, and communicate with people. So anyhow, yes, we have a really busy week here, and maybe a really chaotic one because we have 3 big central banks who are all having meetings this week and are all supposed to raise interest rates again. The U.S. Fed, the ECB, and the Bank of England. So there's the potential for surprise with any of those 3. And there's also the potential for them all to be on the same page and either send the market into a relief rally for the ages or completely freak traders out and send stocks crashing. We just can't know. So there's that. And then you got obviously geopolitics at the same time. We're sending tanks to Ukraine and maybe
they don't know how to ride. They don't know how to drive those. They have no clue, which means we're sending contractors in there to operate those tanks. There's no other way it could be.
Trainers, right? Yeah, at least trainers, which means that our guys, American soldiers, are at risk and could be blown up at any moment.
They are already.
There's so much to hate about this, but my God, it just keeps getting crazier and crazier.
All right. So look, they didn't know how to fire javelin missiles, anti-tank weapons. They didn't know how to do any of that stuff. Obviously, they got the training from someplace. I mean, I guess there's a YouTube channel on how to blow up tanks, but, I haven't seen it, and how to shoot down Russian MiGs, all of that. So obviously, we got people there that we're not talking about. And in all likelihood, Americans have died there. For what purpose? We could debate that. It's already happening, but this is so obvious. There's no way, those new tanks, those M1 Abrams tanks are highly complex. And, it's not quite like a video game where you kind of just play along and then you catch on to it. I mean, this is like real life. So there's no way that they are, they'll be along for the ride to learn how to use it. But initially, there's no possible way that they can be riding those tanks themselves. It just can't be.
Yeah. It just keeps getting crazier and crazier. And we were going to talk more economics originally, and yes. I jumped ahead to war. But while we're there, somebody bombed Iran yesterday.
Drone attack.
And, the assumption out there seems to be that it was the Israeli Air Force, but I don't think there's any definite news yet about who did it. But, Iran is supplying drones to Russia. So this is, the war broadening out. Whoever did it, they're taking out, and then they're broadening. They've opened another front. So they're taking out the supply chain of some of Russia's gear. God. And then what was the other? Oh, and then one of our generals in the U.S. said, oh, yeah, we're going to be at war with China by 2025. So they're making plans for that to happen.
Oh, we can hardly wait.
It's like a handful of people decided to destroy the world, got a hold of the American government, and they're systematically doing it. This is just this is crazier than anything you and I have had to talk about in the years that we've been doing these
10 years.
these interviews. Yeah,
10
a
years.
decade we've been doing these interviews, and it was always, oh yeah, financial crisis, and that sounded crazy enough. But global thermonuclear war is orders of magnitude more crazy.
Strange love, right?
Yeah, it is.
Love.
It does have the feeling of a Dr. Strangelove thing. What do you think? What do you think? Most of the chicken hawk neocon psychopaths have their doomsday bunkers all stocked with 18-year-old girls, and they're getting ready to repopulate the earth after blowing it up.
I saw that movie. That was a good movie.
That's Dr. Strangelove. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Like, that was one of the funniest movies of all time.
Yeah. There's a scene where the Henry Kissinger character says, yes, we've, we need to repopulate the world. So we've recruited about 10 healthy young women for each of you,
All right.
And the generals are like, okay, yeah.
That's a post-apocalyptic world that I want to be part of.
Yeah, that's right. We're mainly mad because they're leaving us out of it.
All right. Yeah, that's it. It's all a big club, and you're not in it.
And you are not in this one. No.
So Amy W. says, since when did John Rubino become the spokesman for Mr. Putin? I didn't know you were on the Russian payroll, John.
That's the problem. Yeah.
From what I recall, it was Russia invading Ukrainian democracy that we just handpicked. When does it stop, John? Moldova, Georgia, Slovenia, Finland, Poland?
It was never going to. Basically, this happened because NATO has been expanding since World War II after promising not to expand. In writing, there's a signed agreement when the two Germanys were reunited, that NATO would not continue the expansion beyond that. But instead, we've kept it up all the way to Russia's border. And Putin has been saying for the last few years, look, you can't have a hostile anti-Russia military alliance right on our borders. That's an act of war. That's the Cuban Missile Crisis in reverse. And so he's been saying that was a red line all along. So if we wanted to avoid this war, all we had to do was not try to recruit Ukraine into NATO. And all we have to do to stop it is to agree that Ukraine will never be invited to join NATO. Russia could pull out, and that would be the end. That's all they care about is defensible borders.
I don't think Putin is a saint by any stretch.
Oh, no.
He's a stone cold killer. You look in his eyes, he's a killer. All right. KGB, FSB, all of that stuff. But he's a pragmatic killer, like most of our politicians, except the ones running the show now.
Yeah. And if somebody being a bad guy is our criteria for invading them, then we need to go get Saudi Arabia and China and North Korea and 5 or 6 other countries that are all run by bad people. But we don't invade all of the badly run countries, because that's a recipe for disaster. And, we just, we want to take Russia off the chessboard, basically. And,
we want regime change in Russia. That is a bad move. There is but in any event, I think we kicked that can around enough. Suffice it to say, it's like giving kids, it's like giving, what's his name, Alec Baldwin, a gun that only fires blanks, and he finds a way to kill people. That's what it is. Giving your teenager the keys, a fifth of Jack Daniels and the keys to the Ferrari, and expecting a good outcome here. Something has to give. And the gaslighting, which, by the way, was the word of 2022, gaslighting. Now, I've known that movie since I was a little kid, scared the hell out of me. It's based on a movie where the guy is trying to drive his wife nuts and steal all her money. It's a freaky movie. But gaslighting, John, like you and I would say more so you than I are wordsmiths. All right. We know how to craft language, but our purpose in crafting an article or a book is totally different than theirs. We're not out to manipulate Joe Sixpack we're out to like try to get them to put a couple cans down and take a look at what's going around in your life, you know?
Yeah. Well, but gaslighting is this year's word because it's done so much out there. I mean, so much of public policy right now is designed to convince people that what they're seeing is not real. They can't trust. They shouldn't trust their eyes. They should trust the powers that be, whether it's the public health authorities or the big banks. You know, trust Wall Street or trust the military-industrial complex. Over your own perceptions and your own judgment. And, that's why people are so mad. I just did a post on Substack about the shrinking trust horizon. And that's basically a process by which, in good times, we trust the big systems out there and we'll let our money be with Wall Street and we'll take the pills the doctor gives us and everything. And when those big systems turn out to lie to us.
And don't forget the vaccines.
Okay.
Got to take them.
Yeah. And but once we get betrayed a few times, our trust horizon shrinks back to the people we can actually meet, shake hands with, look in the eye, because we've learned not to trust these big, distant, powerful systems that are run by people we don't know. So that's the reason for the fact that homestead properties are the most popular kind of land right now, places where you can grow your own food, because we don't trust the big food systems, why people are homeschooling their kids, why they refuse to take a lot of the treatments that are being pushed on us out there by the medical establishment, because we don't trust those guys anymore. So yeah, the shrinking trust horizon, and that plays into, of course, the gold thesis, right? Because if you don't trust the big systems, then obviously money is one of the biggest systems. You don't trust your fiat currency.
Mm-hmm.
So you withdraw from, say, government bond funds and bank accounts denominated in dollars and shift into old kinds of money like gold and silver that governments can't just create more of out of thin air. There's no counterparty risk with gold and silver. You cannot be gaslit with your silver coins. They're going to be there. They are what they are. And, that's now becoming the gold story. Before it was, inflation or whatever and a monetary reset. Now you can't trust anybody. Get out of everything and into gold and silver and farmland.
I love it. But, it's so true. It just really, you look around and this is what Martin Armstrong calls the economic confidence model. And what really drives the price of precious metals is loss of faith in the government. And unfortunately, the world's so complex now, John, that we've never trusted the government as little as we do now. And we've never needed it more. All right. In terms of, I'm not saying that it needs to be satisfying everybody's wants and needs, but just to carry out its basic functions, protecting us from enemies inside and out, protecting the free market, courts. And yet all of this, man, you ask people, do you trust the courts? No one ever talks about reforming the judicial system, which is rotted to the core. That's why I'm America's top recovering attorney, John.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're right. A lot needs to be done here because everything is broken. And obviously the problem is that nobody knows how to fix any of this stuff. And the guys in charge who might know how to fix it are benefiting from it. So they don't want to fix it because that wouldn't be a fix from their point of view. So yeah, basically we have to collapse and the systems just have to fail. And then we need to rebuild from the rubble. Brutal process, but it's a process that we're close to now. Yeah, I mean, we're not far from that now because
it's so scary though.
Yeah, if you look at the government's interest cost on their debt, that might be the most important stat in the world right now because it almost doubled in just the last year. We went from
493 billion.
Yeah,
wasn't that
so next year
military budget?
Yeah, well, so next year we hit $1 trillion of just interest expense. And Social Security and Medicare, which is us baby boomers retiring, is going to go up to almost that. And all of that money is going to be borrowed, which means we're going to be adding a minimum of $2 trillion to government debt going forward forever. And if interest rates don't go back down to almost zero, we will be bankrupted by rising interest costs.
And if you go back down to zero,
then inflation
currency will
spirals
become
out of control.
worthless.
Yeah, exactly. So we're in that box now. It's a death spiral. And there's probably no way out. And, you and I've been talking about this for a long time, and it didn't happen, and it didn't happen. And
People said
it finally happened, Yeah, and finally it has happened. And that's why this year is going to be a very different year, because this is new. This death spiral is something that is different from the crises that came before, because those were, at least in the short run, fixable. The Fed could do something to make the pain go away temporarily. And this time they can't. They can't stop interest costs from exploding without causing inflation to explode. And they have no idea what to do any more than anybody else. The Fed does not know how to fix this. So once again, you want to be in real assets. You want to be in things that are not destroyed by a currency collapse, because that's the ultimate end game here, is some kind of a massive currency reset. And you don't want to be hurt by something like that. So, that there's your investment thesis. Get out of the stuff that will be hurt when the dollar finally does collapse.
Yep. This is it. I mean, we've been talking about this for a decade now, and here we are. Well, all right. So let's talk about slowing economy and the earnings prints that have come out. Now, one thing, when the stock market, when earnings are released, what's usually been happening lately, another form of gaslighting, you'll see the thing, Apple beats earnings estimates, right? But what they don't say is that those estimates have been revised and marked down. So it actually looks like they did better than expected, when in reality, they didn't do quite as bad as was expected.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing companies do. So they can say, we beat expectations after they've lowered expectations dramatically. But the big earnings number of the past week was Intel, the big chip maker, who did not beat, emphatically did not beat the number. They came in way below expectations. Their stock tanked. And everybody's wondering what that means for the global economy, because microchips are so integral to everything that we hold dear out there. And if the biggest chip maker is not selling nearly as many chips as they thought, that means a lot fewer devices that run on chips are being sold. And that means the economy is much slower than they thought it was. Well, the economy is going to slow hard no matter what, because consumers are tapped out. Yeah, credit card debt is all-time high. And that means that a lot of people are not just borrowing on their credit cards, but they're carrying balances already, which they're paying 22% interest on, which will bankrupt them in no time. And that usually is a precursor to a big downturn in consumer spending, which pulls the economy down. So, nothing mysterious there. That's going to happen in the next 6 months to 12 months. And it'll result in a recession. And then what? What do we do in a recession in this world?
Yeah, we can't really afford one, can we?
Don't just survive, thrive. The Financial Survival Network.
Fury Gold Mines is a Canada-focused exploration and development company committed to aggressively growing its scalable, high-grade gold assets with major drill campaigns planned across its 3.5 million ounce portfolio. Fury is led by a management team of proven explorers and developers with a track record of success in advancing and financing project development. Fury Gold Mines is well positioned to create value for investors with low-risk development growth and the potential for a new major discovery. Fury Gold Mines trades on the TSX and NYSE American under the ticker FURY. To learn more, go to furygoldmines.com. That's furygoldmines.com.
This is the Financial Survival Network, the information you need to thrive now more than ever.
Well, we respond to recessions with dramatic cuts in interest rates. Normally, the Fed cuts interest rates 500 basis points, 5 percentage points to get us out of a recession. That would take us back to zero.
Mm-hmm.
And we found out what 0% interest rates do. They lead to inflation. We had 10% inflation last year. Why? Because we had 0% interest rates for the previous 3 or 4 years. So we know that now. So 0% interest rates won't have the same positive impact on the economy that they did in the past, because they will scare people more than they reassure people. And there we are. The trust horizon will shrink to no longer include Wall Street, and that's the end of that party.
If you trusted them at all, and we could debate that for a while, like how worthy of your trust that they really are. Hey, speaking of earnings, though, stock that you love to hate had record earnings, record sales. Earnings are, I don't remember how much more, 100%, but sales were up 50%. You know which company I'm talking about?
Are you talking about Tesla?
You nailed it. Yeah, isn't it amazing? Because the government undertakes this really foolhardy approach of implementing against the will of the people EVs. And I've got one, so I'm not prejudiced against them. I love it. I think it's the greatest car ever. But as a practical matter, I don't think it's really a very good idea to forcibly convert and then to hinder production of petroleum and so-called hydrocarbons. It makes no sense to do that. But as they diminish the overall market for cars, what's happening is the EV share is skyrocketing. And it's solely due, for the most part, I'd say 80% due to the government putting their thumb on the scale, picking winners and losers, which they were not originally intended to do when this country was founded, John.
Well, I think EVs were going to take market share no matter what, because they're very cool. They're way more fun to drive. And they have this green story attached to them, although, the truth is coming out lately about where cobalt comes from. And you've seen those
Congo?
pictures.
And that Congo with children mining it and stuff.
And not just several children, like 1 million children.
Yeah.
They get these pictures of these giant mines. As far as the eye can see, it's children everywhere. Yeah, and then you also have to do all kinds of toxic chemical related stuff to make lithium. And so it's a complicated story, and it can only happen at a pace that allows the supply chains to all keep up. And that's the problem with a lot of green technology right now, is that, we're all going to move in that direction. They're in many ways a great idea, but we don't have the stuff that we need to do that right now. Like, there is not enough copper available in the world right now to electrify the world the way we think we're going to. There's not enough cobalt, lithium available. I mean, it's in the world, but we can't get to it yet because that takes a long time to make a mine. And and uranium for nuclear power. These are all investment theses where we're going to do these things, and barring a nuclear war, we're going to do these things. And right now, there isn't enough stuff that goes into these things to actually make that possible. So we have to get that stuff. So, you definitely want to be looking at the uranium miners now. I was talking to somebody yesterday who asked me about it, and then, I was looking things up, and then Sprott has a physical uranium trust where they just go out and buy uranium and lock it away.
Take it off the market.
Yeah, which
off the market.
Makes it a self-fulfilling prophecy. The more they take off the market, the higher the price goes, which makes their NAV, their net asset value, go up, which makes them more attractive, which brings in more money for which they can use to buy more uranium. And those kinds of ETFs are they're of questionable utility for the markets in which they operate, but they're great for investors because they push the price of whatever it is they're hoarding up. So Sprott's Uranium Trust might be a good, quick, simple way to jump on the uranium bandwagon. You don't have to worry about mining anything, and what might happen. Yeah, no environmental stuff. You just buy the uranium and put it away.
I like it. I like the thesis. I think there's going to be a shortage of this stuff, and we've underinvested in the entire resource sector. I just like energy because the turnaround is a lot quicker than trying to develop a new copper mine in not necessarily friendly jurisdiction, but just a jurisdiction that has the copper and getting the approvals, all that stuff.
Well, see, that's good for the existing copper mines. Because if you've already got one that's got copper in the ground, it's producing, and the new copper mines take 10 years to start, then that means your copper is in demand for as far as the eye can see. So it's it's a thing that's definitely worth exploring. We got to figure out. Oh, sorry about that. I am once again watching my blogs. Yeah.
That's all right. We didn't hear.
Yeah.
But like a lot of this, what's going on is really, it's just unfathomable because they're just not being real smart here, and they're creating, really bad unintended consequences, right? So, what else do we have here? What's with all these food warehouses and a large egg farm just burned down? And I don't know. Have you seen the price of eggs at Whole Foods? You can't buy more than 2 dozen eggs at a time. So of course I didn't need any eggs particularly, but when I saw that, I immediately bought 2 dozen eggs.
Eggs are the new toilet paper. Yeah. Well,
eggs are the new toilet paper. That's
speaking of gaslighting, see, I think the guys in charge want us to believe there are food shortages out there.
Yeah.
And remember, because last year was all food processing plants. They were going up in flames, or planes were landing on them, or lots of random things were going wrong there. And now it's a big egg farm.
We got egg shortages.
Yeah, because we already kind of have egg shortages, and now this is going to make it much worse. And I think first of all, they're telling us don't believe our eyes and ears. They're telling us that something is systematically happening to the food supply system, right? That Bill Gates, who bought all the farmland, is now out there blowing up egg factories and stuff. Now, I'm not saying I think that's true, but I'm saying you could infer that. Yeah, that's a joke. That's a joke. But you could infer something sinister like that from all of these things happening that never happened before. Mm-hmm. But the government is just saying, there's just a food shortage. It's Ukraine's fault. It's Russia's fault. And so direct your anger in that direction and obey. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying I know exactly what's happening, but I am saying that that's a scenario that is defensible. And if it is defensible, then it raises the question, what is it that they're going to need us to obey over next? What's the next crisis that the aristocracy is going to use to
go to waste,
to feast on the peasants? Yeah. And who knows? I mean, there's such a long list. We haven't had a giant cyber attack yet. We haven't had an EMP attack yet. We haven't had a solar flare. So all of those things could happen anytime. But I think the food shortage thing is the obvious 2023 crisis.
I think it's building up to that for sure. And just remarkable. And you won't see any mention of it in mainstream media, just like you won't see mention of this headline from the Babylon Bee. Djokovic wins Australian Open by default as all other players die of heart attacks. And I want to emphasize, we have no idea why all these athletes are dropping on fields left and right, why high school kids are having strokes and heart attacks, why the death rate is up 26% in the United States. We just don't have any idea why this is happening, but maybe there's a coincidence here. Maybe it's pure happenstance, John.
That's right. We have no idea. It could be coincidence. But it's nice to see the internet freeing up enough to allow Babylon Bee to run something like that and get away with it. They would have gotten kicked off Twitter pre-Elon Musk for that. And it's nice to see freedom of expression expanding in that one little area, at least. So that's a positive thing. There, we had a positive thing to say.
All right.
Today.
I know we talk about a lot of negative stuff, like obviously, but overall, I do believe that in many aspects, the human race is moving forward. It's a contradiction, but I think there's always part that's pulling back. It's always in flux. But overall, if you look back to where we were, even after World War II, post-World War II, and still there was a lot of bad things going on, you can't deny that the human race has advanced, but maybe not where it counts in a spiritual and the philosophical way. We haven't advanced there technologically, and in terms of reduction of poverty, more food, reduction of starvation, all that. We've definitely moved ahead, reducing disease before we decided to create more of it, right? And you know what I'm talking about, but we don't want to say it because you know what'll happen. But all of this, John, is just the human condition continues to improve, but the way we're getting there is just really bad.
Yeah. Well, our power is outpacing our emotional maturity for sure. And there's the one theory about filters to explain why there are no aliens visiting us that can be proven. And one is that, it's normal for species to develop power before they develop wisdom. And that it's just very common for, there's so many different ways to destroy yourself when you reach a level of technology. And most intelligent species destroy themselves before they can come over and visit us, and we're in that phase now where we can easily destroy the world 5 different ways. We could unleash AIs in ways that destroy humanity, or we can
robots.
We can.
Drones.
The robot apocalypse is a potentially real thing, and so is nanotech, and so is nuclear war, and so is bio war. All of these things are being worked on out there, and any one of them could get out of control. So that's our challenge for the next 100 years is to figure out a way to manage this new power in a way that doesn't destroy us. So far, not so good, but there's always a chance we come to our senses.
Maybe. Well, one other thing I'd like to mention before we conclude, I know you got to get going. There was a Project Veritas video drop where the head of a major guy at Pfizer was pretty much talking about we keep, I guess you would call it gain of function research. We keep doing that so we can come up with the next and the next and the next vaccine. And I don't know about you. I was kind of disturbed, to say the least, about this business plan, which capitalizes on making viruses more deadly and then providing the cure. What happens when it gets released, which we think the last one, by all accounts, I would give it 75 to 85% confidence that it came out of a lab.
Yep.
Now we've got all this technology to create more deadly strains of diseases that have been totally gone for almost 100 years. Where does this leave us?
Well, that's the business case or this kind of strategy. You make the virus and you can pretend that you're just making it so you can test new, better vaccines, but you've got this virus sitting in your lab that could, if it was released, could make you $100 billion next year. How do you justify not releasing it? If you're a sociopath CEO of a biotech company, right? You kind of are going to be very tempted to secretly let the thing get loose and then wait a month or two until everybody's properly panicked and then come out with a vaccine that you already created when you had the virus in the lab. That's the danger that this kind of thing, this kind of research creates, because it doesn't have to be every single biotech company, every single pharmaceutical company doing it. It just has to be one crazy one, right? One psychopath. And, you could make the case that what we've just gone through looks suspiciously like that business model playing out. So again, gaslighting wherever you look, we might be being lied to. We might not be. There's no way to know because we don't have inside information. When they do that to rats in experiments, the rats go psychotic. If you keep randomly shocking lab animals, they completely eventually lose it. And humanity is kind of in that boat right now. There's stuff coming at us that might be true, might not be true, but are dangerous in any event. What are we going to do about it? Who knows? Yeah, it's a very scary time.
Hey, it's the same. It's the military-industrial complex business model brought to biotech.
Well, yeah,
right?
yes, that's right. Start a war and then supply both sides. That's the arms manufacturers model, and biotech has figured out how to do that too. You know, in their own field, maybe.
Hey, and I know I mentioned this book to you before, but you absolutely have to read it. It's called Gangsters of Capitalism, and it basically follows General Smedley Butler through his exploits, and he was in every single imperialistic endeavor of the United States since the late 1800s. And what is shocking about the book is you knew all these things individually, but you never looked at them in the totality where everyone was listed in one place and explained the motivation behind each one, like invading Nicaragua because United Fruit was worried about their fruit plantations, gunboat diplomacy, invasion of the Philippines, multiple invasions of Haiti, invasions of Mexico. And it goes on and on and on, John. And a lot of the reason why things are so screwed up now is from that policy. Highly recommended. I'll try to pin it in the comments. Gangsters of Capitalism. It's written by a very liberal guy, reporter for the New York Times, and it's definitely anti-American. But when you read it and you see what's really happened, it will blow your mind.
Yeah, you can read American history in several ways, and one way is as a predatory entity stomping around the world, kind of taking what it can get away with taking and then lying to everybody about it. With very big, complex things, there's a lot of good and a lot of bad, right? And you can also read American history in a really favorable light because we've done a lot of good things. So it's just complicated. And I think we should be aware of all sides of the story and not delude ourselves about one or the other.
Yeah, agreed.
And I don't know how you would find the time to teach that in history classes because it's just so big, such a complicated story. But it's you can't say with certainty that we're the good guys anymore, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, like the Panama Canal, we fomented a revolt against Colombia in Panama and then took over the government there and pretty much railroaded or ramrodded the canal through. At the same time, we cured smallpox or whatever it was, malaria. We killed off all the mosquitoes there. And the world was definitely a better place for the presence of the Panama Canal. It saved lives because you didn't have to go around the Horn. And it really speeded up commerce. And of course, it benefited American industry primarily, but global industry, no question about it. But then when you see how they do these things, it turns your stomach, and it really, it's like, like Robert Moses used to say, who ran New York City's public authorities, if you want to make an omelet, you got to break some eggs. And we've been breaking a lot of eggs, even though those eggs are going to be in shortage now. So we'll leave it at that. Go check out John's Substack, rubino.substack.com. Subscribe to it and send us any comments, kl@kerrylutz.com. Put them up on the YouTube channel below. We'll get to as many as we can. And make sure you go to my site, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Sign up for your free newsletter. John, we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks, Kerry. See ya.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.